My mom tried to fix her marriage by throwing a brick through a window and almost hitting a child, so I packed up and left her behind. Now she's out of jail and wants back into my life like nothing happened. My dad made me think all men are beautiful. Growing up, he treated my mom like absolute royalty. He was the type of guy to believe that a son's greatest influence is seeing how much love his dad gives his mother, and he always gave without asking for anything in return. On his birthday, he cooked dinner in a full suit and tie. It was her favorite, homemade pineapple pizza. It must have taken him almost 4 hours to make, but said it was worth it because our happiness was his happiness. I expected her to sit down and shower my dad in gifts while we ate, or at least surprise him with a birthday cake. But instead, she just laughed and said, "I could have sworn your birthday was next month," before shoving the pizza right into her throat and squealing with happiness like a pig. Another time, he gave her a just because gift. It was a diamond necklace she had pointed out 3 years prior that she'd seen in a magazine. He had been saving ever since and waiting for this moment for years. After opening it, she hugged him super tight and thanked him. But that's where her gratitude ended, because he asked if she wanted to wear it to the date he had planned for them that night. Tonight is actually my girls' night. We've been planning this all week. Sorry. He then proceeded to help her put the necklace on, before watching her pair it with the skimpiest dress known to mankind to throw it back with her ratchet friends at the club. As soon as the door closed, my heart shattered, because my stoic, nonchalant ex-Army general dad had a tear rolling down his face. He tried to wipe it away in time, but it was too late. I had already seen it. So even when he went to his bedroom and closed the door to signal that he wanted to be alone, I pried it open. "How long are you going to keep acting like this is okay?" I asked, voice shaking. His face went ghost white, and I knew he was embarrassed. "Dad, it's okay to show feelings sometimes. Get the F out." His voice was cold, unforgiving, but I knew it would be my only opportunity to finally talk some sense into him, so I stayed. He couldn't even lock eyes with me without fiddling his thumbs around the frayed seams of the blanket. "Son, your mother just struggles with voicing her appreciation, but trust me, I know she loves me just as much as I love her." This should have been enough, but it wasn't, because the entire time my dad's eyebrows were raised super high, something he only does when he's lying, and I knew I had to do something. So I hosted a dinner party. You see, there was this couple that lived near us who were the complete opposite of my parents. The husband would still woo his wife with her favorite snacks, jewelry, or makeup, but instead of just shutting all over him, his wife would surprise him by getting up early and mowing the lawn for him in the way that he likes. They spent every evening together, fishing and laughing like best friends. I knew they were the perfect people to show my dad exactly what was going on, so I invited them over on Thanksgiving. My dad was the one to open the door. The wife, Samantha, brought over homemade baked goods and ice cream, while the husband brought gifts for everyone. Very expensive-looking gifts at that. I knew my plan was working when this alone was enough to shake up my dad, and while we were all eating dinner, Samantha cuts a steak before serving it to him, while he gently wipes a crumb from her cheek without saying a word. Meanwhile, my dad looked over his shoulder to see my mom scrolling on Instagram with the volume all the way up, not even eating anything, because she already had a huge breakfast with her girls. That evening, after the couple cleaned up the entire dinner together, including the mopping and dishes, it happened. My dad finally hit my mom, with confrontation, of course. He started off by gifting her with a Thanksgiving gift of a huge bag of those expensive dry freeze candy, and when she responded with, "Okay, thanks," he responded with, "They were pretty expensive." My mom just stared at him blankly before saying, "Yep, I went through a lot of trouble to get them for you." By this point, my mom was taking her earrings out and actually getting angry. I deserve to be pampered. Don't you think I deserve a grateful wife? Or at least one who loves me back? This time, she was so taken aback she didn't even have a response. So he grabbed my hand, and we walked out the front door to drive to my granddad's. It was exhilarating TBH, and when he told my granddad what happened, we practically spent the rest of the evening celebrating, until it was cut short. Because that's when my dad got the call. It was my mom at the police station of all places. My dad put her on speaker so granddad and I could hear too. "I'm at the police station," she said, sounding weirdly proud of herself. "I went to teach Samuel and Samantha a lesson for ruining our marriage." My dad's face went pale. "What did you do?" "I showed them what happens when people mess with my family," she said. "Things got a little violent, but it's fine. I just need you to come bail me out so we can go home and talk about us." My dad looked at me, then at my granddad. His hands were shaking. "What exactly happened?" he asked her. "Just come get me," she snapped. "This is me showing you how much I love you. Isn't that what you wanted?" I hung up the phone immediately. My dad looked like he was about to throw up. We both just sat there for a second, trying to process what the hell just happened. The living room of my granddad's house suddenly felt too small, too warm. The ticking of the old grandfather clock in the corner seemed unnaturally loud. My granddad was the first one to break the silence. "You're not going to bail her out, are you?" he asked my dad, his weathered face creased with concern. My dad shook his head, running his hands through his graying hair. "I don't even know what she did yet." I grabbed my laptop from my backpack and started searching local news sites, my fingers trembling slightly as I typed. Nothing yet. Then I checked Facebook, and sure enough, there was already a post in our neighborhood group. Someone had posted about police cars at Samuel and Samantha's house. The comments were blowing up with speculation. Some neighbors were already connecting it to the arguments they'd heard between my mom and the couple last week. My dad called the police station directly, his voice steadier than I expected. I could only hear his side of the conversation, but it was enough. His face kept getting darker and darker as the officer explained what happened. The color drained from his cheeks, and his shoulders slumped forward. When he hung up, he looked 10 years older. "She threw a brick through their front window," he said quietly, staring at the phone in his hand. Samuel's teenage daughter was sitting right there doing homework. The glass missed her by inches. My stomach dropped like I was on a roller coaster. I'd met their daughter Emma a few times. She was this quiet, sweet kid who played violin and always had a book tucked under her arm. She'd helped me with my algebra last summer when I was struggling. The thought of her almost getting hurt made me feel sick. "Jesus Christ," my granddad muttered, shaking his head slowly. "That woman has finally lost it." My dad nodded slowly, his eyes fixed on some distant point. "They arrested her for property damage and reckless endangerment. The officer said she kept yelling about how they ruined her marriage and turned her husband against her." The phone rang again, its shrill tone making us all jump. It was my mom. My dad hesitated before answering and putting it on speaker again. His hand was visibly shaking now. "Are you coming to get me or what?" she demanded, her voice echoing through the quiet room. "No," my dad said firmly. "I'm not." There was a pause on the other end. I could almost picture my mom's face contorting with anger. "What do you mean no? I did this for you, to show you how much I care about our marriage. You almost hurt a child," my dad said. His voice was shaking with anger. "You think that proves you love me?" "Oh please, I knew what I was doing. The brick wasn't going to hit anyone. I just wanted to scare them for sticking their noses in our business." She actually sounded proud of herself, like she expected praise. "This is me fighting for us. Isn't that what you wanted?" My dad looked at me, his eyes wide with disbelief. I could see the realization dawning on him. The woman he married wasn't who he thought she was. I wanted a partner who appreciated me, not someone who commits crimes against innocent people. "Fine," she snapped. "I'll call Joyce to bail me out, but don't think I'll forget this betrayal." She hung up. My dad put his head in his hands. I'd never seen him look so defeated, not even when his own father died 3 years ago. His shoulders shook slightly, though he made no sound. "You can both stay here tonight," my granddad said, patting my dad's shoulder with his gnarled hand. "We'll figure this out in the morning." I barely slept that night in the unfamiliar guest bed. The sheets smelled like lavender detergent, so different from home. I kept thinking about Emma, about how scared she must have been. The sound of shattering glass, the brick flying through the air, the shards exploding across her homework. Around 3 a.m., I heard my dad on the phone in the guest room across the hall. He was talking to Samuel, apologizing over and over, his voice cracking with emotion. I couldn't hear Samuel's responses, but the conversation went on for almost an hour. The next morning, my dad looked exhausted but somehow more determined than I'd seen him in years. His eyes were red-rimmed but clear. He told me over Granddad's homemade pancakes that Samuel and Samantha were getting a security system installed and that Emma was staying with her grandparents for a few days. They weren't pressing additional charges, but they were understandably shaken up. "We need to go home and pack some things," my dad said, pushing his half-eaten breakfast away. "We're not staying there anymore." When we got back to our house, my mom wasn't there. The place felt different somehow, colder, emptier, even though nothing had physically changed. According to her Instagram, which she was still actively posting on, Joyce had bailed her out that morning. There were already posts about how her ungrateful husband had abandoned her in her time of need and how she was just defending her marriage. Her followers were commenting with heart emojis and supportive messages. We quickly packed up some clothes and essentials. I grabbed my laptop and school stuff, and my dad took some important documents from his office. I noticed he also took the small wooden box where he kept his wedding ring when he wasn't wearing it. As we were loading the car, Joyce pulled up with my mom in the passenger seat. Joyce's red Mustang screeched to a halt in our driveway, and my heart started pounding. My mom got out, looking like she expected a warm welcome. Her makeup was perfect, her hair freshly styled. She must have gone straight to Joyce's to get ready after being released. When she saw us packing the car, her face twisted with anger, the carefully applied smile vanishing instantly. "Where do you think you're going?" she demanded, striding toward us in her high heels. "We're staying at my dad's for a while," my dad said calmly, though I could see the tension in his jaw. "I think we all need some space." "Space? After what I did for you?" She was practically screaming now, her voice carrying across the quiet suburban street. "I fought for our marriage. You committed a crime," my dad said. "You could have hurt a child." "Oh, stop being so dramatic." She rolled her eyes, waving her hand dismissively. "Nothing happened to that brat." I felt a surge of anger burning through my chest. "Her name is Emma, and she's not a brat. She's a nice kid who was just doing her homework when you decided to throw a brick through her window." My mom looked at me like I'd betrayed her, her eyes narrowing to slits. "So you're taking their side too, after everything I've done for you?" I couldn't even respond to that. What had she done for me exactly? I couldn't remember the last time she'd shown up to one of my games or helped me with homework or even asked about my day. All I could remember was her constant criticism, her focus on her own needs, her Instagram posts where I was just a prop for her perfect family image. My dad finished loading the car and handed me the keys, the metal cool against my sweaty palm. "Go wait in the car, son." I didn't argue. As I walked away, I heard my mom's voice rising again, making threats about how she'd make them pay and show everyone what happens when you mess with her family. It was like listening to a stranger. Had she always been this way, and I just hadn't noticed? Or had something in her snapped? I slid into the passenger seat, my hands shaking as I buckled my seatbelt. We stayed at my granddad's for the next few days. His house smelled of pipe tobacco and old books, comforting in its unfamiliarity. My dad contacted a lawyer, who advised him to get a restraining order not just for us, but for Samuel's family too. The lawyer, a stern-looking woman with kind eyes, said my mom's behavior showed clear signs of escalation, and we needed to protect ourselves legally. My dad was hesitant at first. Despite everything, he still had trouble accepting that the woman he'd loved for so many years could be dangerous. But when Samuel called to tell us that my mom had been driving by their house repeatedly, slowing down to stare at their windows, he finally agreed. I overheard him on the phone, his voice growing more concerned as Samuel described my mom's silver SUV cruising past their house at midnight. The hearing for the restraining order was scheduled for the following Monday. In the meantime, my mom's social media campaign against us was getting worse. She was posting old family photos with captions about how her husband and son had abandoned her. Her friends, especially Joyce, were commenting with support, calling my dad all kinds of names. Some of the comments were so vicious they made me feel physically ill. The worst part was that some people were actually buying it. Neighbors who'd known us for years were sending my dad messages, asking why he was being so harsh on my mom. They had no idea what had really happened, and my mom was spinning it to make herself look like the victim. My dad didn't respond to any of them, but I could see how much it hurt him. Monday came, and we went to the courthouse. I was nervous as hell. I'd never been to court before, and the whole thing felt surreal, like I was watching someone else's life fall apart, not my own. The courthouse was imposing, all marble floors and high ceilings that made every footstep echo. My mom showed up with Joyce and another friend. She was dressed conservatively in a navy blue dress with a cardigan, looking nothing like the woman who usually wore revealing clothes to go clubbing. Her hair was pulled back in a modest bun, and her makeup was subtle. She'd clearly put thought into her appearance for the judge. When it was my dad's turn to speak, he calmly explained everything. The brick incident, the stalking behavior, the threats. His voice only wavered once, when he described how close the glass had come to Emma's face. He showed the judge screenshots of some of my mom's more concerning social media posts, including one where she'd written, "Some people deserve what's coming to them," with a photo of our house and Samuel's in the background. Then Samuel testified about finding the brick in his living room, about how his daughter was having nightmares, about the car that kept driving by their house at odd hours. Samantha described how they'd had to install security cameras and were afraid to let their daughter walk to school alone now. Emma wasn't there, thankfully, but her absence spoke volumes. When it was my mom's turn, she put on a performance worthy of an Oscar. Tears, trembling voice, the works. She dabbed at her eyes with a tissue as she claimed she'd been provoked and that Samuel and Samantha had deliberately tried to destroy her marriage. She said she felt threatened by them and was just protecting her family. But the judge wasn't buying it. His eyes remained cool and assessing as he listened to her story. He granted the restraining order immediately. My mom wasn't allowed to come within 500 feet of any of us. Me, my dad, Samuel, Samantha, or Emma. She also couldn't contact us by phone, email, or social media. As we were leaving the courthouse, my mom tried to approach us one last time. A bailiff stepped between us, reminding her of the order that had just been issued. She looked at my dad over the bailiff's shoulder, her eyes burning with something that made my skin crawl. "This isn't over," she said, her voice eerily calm. "You'll see how much I love you." Those words sent a chill down my spine. My dad must have felt it too, because he put his arm around my shoulders and hurried me to the car. For about a week, things were quiet. Too quiet. My dad and I moved into a small apartment across town. The walls were thin and the furniture was sparse, but it felt safer than our house. I transferred to a different school temporarily, just to be safe. My dad took a leave of absence from work. We were basically in hiding, and it sucked. I missed my friends, my room, my normal life. Then the packages started arriving at Samuel and Samantha's house. The first one contained dead flowers with a note that said, "Sorry for your loss." No return address, of course, but it was pretty obvious who sent it. The roses were brown and withered, like they'd been deliberately left to rot before being sent. The second package had family photos of Samuel and Samantha that had been defaced, their faces scratched out, crude drawings added. It was disturbing as hell. Some of the photos had been taken from their social media accounts, but others seemed to have been taken from outside their house, through windows. The thought of my mom lurking outside their home with a camera made my stomach turn. But the third package was what really crossed the line. It contained the diamond necklace my dad had given my mom years ago, the one he'd saved up for because she'd pointed it out in a magazine. I remembered how proud he'd been when he gave it to her on their anniversary. Except now it was snapped in half, with a note that said, "Broken, just like your promises." The diamonds caught the light as Samuel showed it to us, the broken chain dangling like a warning. Samuel called the police immediately. They took the packages as evidence and dusted for fingerprints. Sure enough, they matched my mom's. She hadn't even bothered to wear gloves. The police arrested her the next day for violating the restraining order. This time, when she called from the station, it wasn't my dad she called, it was Joyce. But apparently even Joyce was getting tired of my mom's behavior, because she didn't bail her out right away. The arraignment was scheduled for 2 days later. My dad and I decided to attend, along with Samuel and Samantha. We sat in the back of the courtroom, trying to be inconspicuous. Samuel's hand occasionally went to his wife's shoulder, squeezing gently whenever she tensed up. When they brought my mom in, she looked different, disheveled, angry, nothing like the put-together woman who'd appeared at the restraining order hearing. Her hair was unwashed, and her orange jumpsuit hung loosely on her frame. When she spotted us in the audience, she actually smiled, like she was happy to see us. It was creepy as hell. The prosecutor presented the case, describing my mom as a repeat offender, showing escalating patterns of obsession, harassment, and disregard for legal consequences. He mentioned the brick incident, the stalking, and now the packages. The judge looked at my mom's record and frowned. "Ms. Johnson, this is your second arrest in less than a month. You violated a restraining order that was put in place to protect these individuals from exactly this kind of behavior." My mom tried to look contrite, but I could see the anger simmering just below the surface. "Your Honor, I'm clearly going through a difficult time emotionally. My husband abandoned me after 20 years of marriage. I'm not thinking clearly." The judge wasn't impressed. "Be that as it may, your actions show a deliberate intent to harass and intimidate. Given your pattern of escalation, I'm setting bail at $50,000. My mom's face fell. That was way more than Joyce could afford to bail her out. She looked over at us again, like she expected my dad to step in and help her. He didn't. He just sat there, his face expressionless, though I could feel him trembling slightly beside me. As they led her away, she started yelling, "This is all your fault. I did everything for you. I loved you more than anyone ever could." The bailiff had to physically remove her from the courtroom. The judge ordered a psychiatric evaluation before her next hearing. Outside the courthouse, a reporter tried to approach us for comment. My dad just shook his head and kept walking. We didn't want any part of turning this into a media circus. Over the next few weeks, more information started coming out about my mom's past behavior. Old acquaintances and relatives began reaching out to my dad, sharing stories I'd never heard before. Apparently, this wasn't the first time my mom had become obsessed and destructive. Years before she met my dad, she'd spread rumors about a coworker that ruined the woman's marriage. She'd stalked an ex-friend for over a year after a falling out. She'd even tried to sue a teacher for ruining her life after getting a bad grade in college. One cousin revealed that my mom had set fire to an ex-boyfriend's car in her early 20s, though charges were never filed. My dad was shocked. He'd known none of this when they got married. Her family had kept it quiet, hoping she'd grown out of it. The more we learned, the more it became clear that my mom had serious issues that had never been properly addressed. The prosecution used all of this to build their case. They argued that my mom was a danger to the community and needed serious intervention. Her lawyer tried to play the mental health card, claiming she needed treatment, not punishment. When the trial finally came, my mom took the stand in her own defense. She tried to paint herself as the victim, claiming she was mentally unwell and that everyone had turned on her. She cried and apologized, saying she never meant to hurt anyone. But then came the cross-examination. The prosecutor asked her about the brick incident, specifically about Emma being near the window. "Did you know there was a child in the room when you threw the brick?" he asked, his voice sharp. My mom hesitated, then made a fatal mistake. "I knew she was at the window," she admitted. "I just wanted to make a point. I wasn't trying to hurt her, just scare them all a little." The courtroom went silent. She'd just admitted to knowingly endangering a child. Even her own lawyer looked stunned, his pen frozen mid-note on his legal pad. The verdict came quickly after that. Guilty on all counts: harassment, violation of restraining orders, and reckless endangerment with intent to harm. The sentence: 18 months in county jail, with mandatory psychiatric treatment, no possibility of early release. As they led her away, my mom looked back at us one last time. There was no anger anymore, just a hollow emptiness that was somehow worse. My dad met her gaze steadily, but didn't wave or nod or give any sign of forgiveness. It was over. Outside the courtroom, there were no reporters waiting, no cameras. No one cared about our family drama except us. It was both a relief and strangely deflating. "What now?" I asked my dad as we walked to the car, our footsteps echoing in the parking garage. He sighed deeply. "Now we rebuild together." A week later, we went back to our house. It felt strange being there without my mom, but also peaceful in a way it hadn't been for years. The first thing we did was change the locks. Then we went through the house, packing up my mom's things to put in storage. It was like exercising a ghost. I found myself breathing easier with each box we filled, like the air itself was clearing. We also helped Samuel and Samantha replace their broken window. They opted for reinforced glass this time, more expensive, but worth it for the peace of mind. While we were there, Emma came home from school. She was hesitant around us at first, which broke my heart. But by the end of the afternoon, she was showing me her violin and asking if I wanted to hear her play. I sat on their couch, listening to her practice a Bach piece, and felt something inside me begin to heal. That evening, my dad and I ordered a pineapple pizza. Not because it was my mom's favorite, but because we realized we both actually liked it all along. We sat in comfortable silence, eating and occasionally commenting on the TV show we were half watching. "I'm sorry you had to go through all this," my dad said suddenly. "I should have seen the signs earlier." I shook my head. We both missed them. Or maybe we saw them but didn't want to admit what they meant. He nodded slowly. "I always thought loving someone meant accepting them exactly as they are, but I think I confused acceptance with enabling." "You deserved better," I told him. We both did. He reached over and squeezed my shoulder. "We've got better now. It's just you and me, kid, and that's enough." As we sat there eating our pizza, pizza, with no Instagram volume blaring in the background, no slammed doors, no walking on eggshells, I realized something important. Sometimes the family you're born with isn't the family you end up with. Sometimes you have to build something new from the ashes of what burned down, and sometimes that new thing is stronger than what came before. My dad's phone buzzed with a text. It was from Samuel, inviting us to go fishing that weekend. My dad looked at me questioningly. Sounds fun, I said, and I meant it. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt like we were going to be okay. Not perfect, not immediately, but eventually. We had a long road ahead of us, but at least now we were walking it together, in the right direction. We ended up going fishing with Samuel that weekend. I'd never been fishing before, but it turned out to be pretty chill. Just sitting there with a line in the water, not really talking much, just existing together. Samuel brought these awesome ham sandwiches his wife made, and my dad brought some sodas. Emma came too, bringing her homework to do on the dock while we fished. I noticed she still jumped at sudden noises, but she seemed more relaxed around us now. First catch gets to pick dinner, Samuel announced, casting his line with practiced ease. My dad laughed, a real laugh that reached his eyes. I hadn't heard that sound in forever. You're on. I didn't catch anything that day, but I didn't really care. Watching my dad gradually relax, his shoulders finally dropping from around his ears, was worth more than any fish. Life started settling into a new normal after that. We got into a routine at home. I'd handle breakfast while Dad did dinner. We split the chores without even having to discuss it. The house felt lighter somehow, like we could both breathe easier. School was weird at first. Everyone had heard rumors about what happened with my mom. Some kids avoided me like I was contagious, while others suddenly wanted to be my friend out of morbid curiosity. I just kept my head down and focused on my grades. My English teacher, Mrs. Patel, pulled me aside one day and told me if I ever needed someone to talk to, her door was always open. I didn't take her up on it then, but it was nice knowing the option was there. About a month after the trial, we got a letter from my mom. The prison counselor had apparently encouraged her to write to us as part of her therapy. Dad stared at the envelope for a long time before opening it. I stood in the doorway, watching his face as he read. His expression didn't change much, but I saw his jaw tighten. What does it say? I finally asked. He handed me the letter without a word. It was 3 pages of her explaining how everything was everyone else's fault but hers, how we had betrayed her, how Samuel and Samantha had manipulated us against her. Not a single genuine apology in the whole thing, just blame and self-pity. She ended it by saying she expected us to be waiting for her when she got out, so we could be a family again. Dad took the letter back when I finished reading and tore it into tiny pieces. We didn't respond. 2 weeks later, another letter arrived. This one was different. It was shorter, just 1 page, and the handwriting was shakier. She wrote that her psychiatrist had adjusted her medication, and she was starting to see things differently. She apologized for the previous letter and said she was beginning to understand that her actions had consequences. She didn't ask for forgiveness, just acknowledged the pain she'd caused. Dad read this one twice before carefully folding it and putting it in his desk drawer. He didn't tear it up, but he didn't reply either. The letters kept coming, about 1 a month. Each one showed a little more self-awareness than the last. Dad never responded, but he kept them all in that drawer. I think he was waiting to see if the changes were real or just another manipulation. Meanwhile, life went on. I joined the school's debate team and discovered I was actually pretty good at it. Dad started dating again. Nothing serious, just coffee with a woman from his office named Patricia. She came over for dinner once. She had a loud laugh and brought homemade cookies that were actually really good. I liked her, but I could tell Dad was taking things super slow. Trust issues, obviously. Samuel and Samantha became regular fixtures in our lives. We'd have dinner at their place every couple of weeks, and they'd come to ours other times. Emma and I developed this weird sibling-like relationship. She'd help me with math, I'd help her with history. Sometimes we'd just hang out and play video games or watch movies. Her parents seemed happy that she had someone to talk to who understood what she'd been through. About 6 months after my mom went to jail, we got a call from her lawyer. She wanted to see us. Dad immediately tensed up, his knuckles going white around his coffee mug. You don't have to go, I told him. Neither of us does. He nodded slowly. I know, but I think I need to, for closure, if nothing else. I decided to go too. Not because I missed her or wanted reconciliation, but because I needed to see for myself if she'd really changed, or if it was just another act. The county jail was depressing as hell. Gray walls, fluorescent lighting that made everyone look sick, the smell of industrial cleaner barely covering up the underlying stench of too many bodies in too small a space. We had to go through metal detectors and get patted down before they led us to the visitation area. My mom was already waiting when we arrived. She looked smaller somehow, her prison uniform hanging loose on her frame. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, no makeup. When she saw us, she didn't immediately rush over or make a scene. She just sat there, her hands folded on the table in front of her. Dad sat down across from her. I took the seat next to him, keeping my distance. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Thank you for coming, she finally said. Her voice was quieter than I remembered, less dramatic. Dad nodded but didn't say anything. I could feel the tension radiating off him. I've been doing a lot of work with my psychiatrist, she continued. I've been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder and narcissistic tendencies. It doesn't excuse what I did, but it helps explain some of it. Why did you want to see us? Dad asked, his voice carefully neutral. She looked down at her hands. I wanted to apologize in person. The letters didn't seem enough. She took a deep breath. I'm sorry for how I treated both of you, for taking without giving back, for the violence and the manipulation, for not being the wife and mother you deserved. I studied her face, looking for signs that this was just another performance, but there was something different about her eyes. They seemed clearer somehow, more present. I don't expect forgiveness, she continued. I just wanted you to know that I understand now what I did wrong, and I'm working on it. Dad was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was steady. I appreciate that, but words are easy. Actions are what matter. She nodded. I know. That's why I'm not asking to come back when I get out. I know that bridge is burned. I just wanted to give you both some peace, if I could. We talked for about 20 minutes more. Nothing dramatic, just updates on my school and Dad's work. It was strangely civil, like talking to a distant relative rather than my mom. When our time was up, she didn't try to hug us or make us promise to visit again. She just thanked us for coming and said goodbye. In the car on the way home, Dad was quiet, his eyes fixed on the road. You okay? I asked. He nodded slowly. I think so. It's just strange seeing her like that. Part of me wants to believe she's changed, but another part is waiting for the other shoe to drop. Yeah, I agreed. Same. We didn't visit again after that, but the letters continued to arrive. Each one was respectful of our boundaries, never pushing for reconciliation obligation, just keeping us updated on her progress. Dad still kept them all in his drawer. Life continued to move forward. I got my driver's license and Dad bought me this hit-up old Honda that I absolutely loved. Samuel taught me how to change the oil and rotate the tires. Emma got first chair in her school orchestra and invited us to her concert. Dad and Patricia were still seeing each other, taking things day by day. About a year into my mom's sentence, we got a call from the prison. There had been an incident. My mom had intervened when another inmate was being attacked and gotten stabbed in the process. She was in the prison hospital, stable but injured. Dad and I went to see her right away. She looked pale against the white hospital sheets, a bandage visible under her hospital gown. When she saw us, her eyes widened in surprise. "You came," she said softly. "Of course we came," Dad replied, his voice gruff with emotion. "You're hurt," she smiled weakly. "The other woman was getting struck pretty badly. I couldn't just stand there." The guard who was stationed by her bed nodded in confirmation. "She probably saved that other inmate's life. Took a shiv to the ribs for her trouble." We stayed for about an hour. The conversation was easier this time, less forced. When we were leaving, my mom reached out and briefly touched Dad's hand. "Thank you for coming. It means a lot." He nodded, his expression softening slightly. "Take care of yourself, Karen." It was the first time he'd used her name since the trial. After that visit, something shifted. We didn't suddenly forgive and forget everything, but there was a tentative bridge being built. Dad started occasionally responding to her letters. Brief notes, nothing emotional, but responses nonetheless. I sent her a copy of my school photo and a short update about debate team. Small steps. When my mom was released 6 months early for good behavior, we didn't go pick her up. That would have been too much, too soon. But Dad did help her find an apartment on the other side of town and a job at his friend Kenneth's accounting firm. Kenneth knew the whole story, but believed in second chances. The first time we saw her as a free woman was at a neutral location, a coffee shop downtown. She arrived early, already sitting with her tea when we walked in. She'd gained back some of the weight she'd lost in prison, and her hair was styled simply but neatly. She looked normal, not the glamorous, attention-seeking woman I remembered, nor the hollow-eyed inmate we'd visited, just a middle-aged woman waiting in a coffee shop. "Hi," she said, standing up as we approached. She didn't try to hug us, just gestured to the chairs across from her. We talked for about an hour. She told us about her job, her ongoing therapy, the small apartment she was making her own. Dad mentioned his promotion at work. I talked about my college applications. It was awkward at times, but not hostile. As we were getting ready to leave, she handed Dad a small box. "What's this?" he asked, looking suspicious. "Open it," she said. Inside was his wedding ring, the one he'd taken off the day she was arrested and never put back on. "I'm not asking you to wear it again," she said quickly. "I just thought you should have it back. It's yours." Dad stared at the ring for a long moment before pocketing it. "Thank you." That night, I found him sitting at the kitchen table, the ring in front of him. He wasn't wearing it, just looking at it thoughtfully. "You thinking about Mom?" I asked, sitting across from him. He nodded, trying to figure out how I feel. "It's complicated. You don't have to decide anything right now," I pointed out. "Or ever, really." He smiled slightly. "When did you get so wise?" I shrugged. "Learn from the best." Over the next few months, we settled into a new kind of normal. Mom stayed in her own apartment, respecting our space. She'd come over for dinner once every couple of weeks. Dad and Patricia were still dating, and Mom seemed genuinely happy for them. There were awkward moments, sure, but fewer as time went on. One evening, about 2 years after everything had happened, we were all at Samuel and Samantha's for a barbecue. Dad and Samuel were manning the grill, Patricia and Samantha were setting up the picnic table, and Emma was showing me her college acceptance letters. My mom was there too, helping with the salads. She'd been invited by Samuel himself, which had surprised everyone, but he believed in forgiveness more than most. I watched as my mom handed Samuel a bowl of potato salad, their interaction completely normal and friendly. No tension, no awkwardness, just two people at a barbecue. It hit me then that we'd actually made it through to the other side of all that chaos. Not unscathed, not unchanged, but intact in the ways that mattered. Later that night, as Dad and I were driving home, I asked him something that had been on my mind. "Do you ever regret standing up to Mom that Thanksgiving? Like, if you'd known what would happen after?" He thought about it for a moment, his eyes on the road. "No," he finally said. "It was messy and painful, but necessary. Sometimes you have to break something completely before you can rebuild it the right way." I nodded, watching the streetlights flash by. "I'm glad you did it." He reached over and squeezed my shoulder. "Me too, son. Me too."